Uh, we have in fact, the panelists are Mr. Anand Sharma, General Manager KSIDC as the moderator. Then we have Dr. Abraham T. Matthew, Dean Research and Consultancy and Professor in Department of Electrical Engineering NIT Calicut. Then we have Anwar TK, co-founder and director of Modular Technologies and CYD Tech Lab. Then we have Jitesh T, Director Operations at UL Technology Solutions, and Rinesh, CTO Rapid Value IT Services, and Vinay James Kennedy, Managing Partner Alpha Bay and CEO Herbs International. So first I would like to introduce Mr. Anand Sharma, currently serving as General Manager of Kerala State Industrial Development Corporation, KSIDC. He heads the startup initiative of the corporation, including the seed funding scheme. Prior to joining KSIDC, he was working with Sherstone Publishing Group, a UK-based educational content development company, as their India country head, and was with KPMG, the global audit and advisory firm. He is a fellow member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India and also a qualified information system auditor. Please, Anand Sharma, please. I request also the other panelists to join. Mr. Abraham T. Matthew, please. Anwar TK, Jitesh is just not there, okay. Rinesh Kane, please, and Vinay James Kennedy. Over to moderator, Mr. Anand Sharma.
Good afternoon, friends. Looks like I am the only non-Calicut guy in this panel here. Everyone else seems to be from Calicut, and I'm probably from the southernmost part of the state. So I think I'll be straight going to the session itself. So I would welcome all the panelists here and request, starting with Dr. Abraham Matthew, to give a brief introduction of themselves, and then, once the introduction part is over, then we'll go on with the questions and, rest of the session.
Honorable Chair of the panel, distinguished participants. Actually, I feel like out of fish out of water, because I am a teacher and all of you are into business. I have nothing to do with business except for some of the exposures at the personal level, but that was into the service sector, not into the engineering. But destiny brought me to engineering teaching, and I am into teaching for the last 32 years. And National Institute of Technology Calicut is a central government funded institution leading technical education in Kerala. Now the focus is investor startup awareness. Now how the education institution can facilitate startup? That is because government now all policy has changed. Maybe I can go back in the history. When the new education policy was introduced by the government in 1983, the focus was mostly to shift the funding pattern in such a way that innovations happen, and that is how Rajiv Gandhi had brought in Sambit Roda and Ashok Junjunwala in IIT Madras started working on rural telephone exchange and technology transfer from foreign people, and the brain gain process started then. And over these years, government, even though the government politically changed, but the mission of the government of India all along has been to promote more and more industrialization in India and develop indigenous technologies enable people to build their own fortunes. And you can see that there is a national innovation policy or intellectual property document that has been released in 2016, where the government's outlook on the patenting process or IP protection has been changed altogether. And now they say that the patent process should happen within 18 months, which has been taking more than 6 years or 4 years. So that needs a lot of things to happen. Not only innovation, but also that enabling for protection of the IP also should happen. And that is what the government is now doing. And in our experience, in the 8th plan, Department of Science and Technology started funding entrepreneurship by conducting entrepreneurship development programs and also starting incubators. And we got the fund first time in 2004, and then we started that incubation. Not only we, many education institutions across India started that. Now the DST has scaled up the funding, and also a variety of funding schemes are available with the department. Last year when we conducted one meeting over dinner with a representative from DST, they exposed the schemes of DST where up to 30 to 50 crore would be invested by the government into industries if the industry is having such deliverables. So what we do is we get the seed fund from the DST, up to 5 lakhs outright we give, which goes as something like an investment, or you can say debt, which the investor had to pay back in a period of 5 to 10 years time with a 6% interest. And that goes as a seed capital. And then we enable more funding from the other schemes of government like Department of Electronics. And many, you can say, I don't say that it is our work, but it is the hard work of many people. Many companies have become successful through that incubation. And now there is a network across India is there for these incubators, called India STEP and Business Incubator Association. That is connecting each of these incubators and steps, and the managers are there on the platform, and they share their experiences, and also they share the information what is available on the investment schemes with the government or people like the angel investors. So that now it is in a growing stage. And I believe that the government, and another development is that the education departments, both at the state level and also at the central level, has recognized the importance of promoting the startup within the educational institution. Up to this time, it was like a voluntary activity of educational institution. Now it has become part of the main process. And maybe that we will be able to mix the plan, the grant from our parent ministry and also the Department of Science and Technology to promote startups in the campuses. And maybe if everything goes smooth, we will have more and more industries coming out of the campuses will be happening. And in my request to the, you can say that the investors is that, I can show another one. I just for the sake of this one, this is an email I got from IIM Lucknow a couple of days back, where they list out that they have an angel investor network around IIM Lucknow. And through that, once the startup is ready to take capital investment, they will connect the startup with the investor group. So like this is something, an enabling environment that it can happen around an educational institution or a cluster of educational institutions. So let the forum Greater Malabar Initiative grow, take the education institutions in this Malabar region into their fold and create an investor network. communicate with the students and the faculty, make them aware of the opportunities, and I hope such a good initiative would get its benefit in the short time. Thank you all.
Thanks, Dr. Abraham. Next, I request Anwar TK, co-founder and director of Mozilla Technologies, to give a brief introduction.
All. I think I've already told this story, and many of you may know it. I can see some of the faces who already know it. Still, I'll just briefly go through it. I've been in the IT industry for past 15 years or so. Initially, for around 10 plus years, I worked on the services side as part of Off-Air Technologies and Green Lemon. And around 2014, I felt like I should start working on something on the product side, because I have been working on the services side for many years. I kind of discussed with a couple of friends from Bangalore, and we decided to start something, and we started discussing in coffee days. So for a few months we were just discussing, and then we took a small room for 4,500 rupees rent, and we three together will sit there and try something. And finally we got a customer, a services customer from Canada, and we developed a small product which is basically a component which will help the e-commerce store to ship easily. This was a Canadian customer, and they had a contract with Canada Post. And this software will help them to print the label, get the rates, all these easily without contacting Canada Post. So we developed this, and we started selling through an online platform. And later we realized there is a lot of opportunity on this side, and we developed the same kind of solution for FedEx, DHL, US Postal Service, Australia Post, Canada Post, and many other shipping service companies. So basically it will integrate the online store with the shipping service provider. And so we started this officially in around 2015 Jan, and we also have many other solutions. And now we are kind of, this year we are targeting $1 million in revenue, but I don't know whether we'll achieve it, but that's the target. We have been growing in 3 digits so far. And we are also working on some products which are into the SaaS products, because subscription-based business is far better than one-time selling. So we are kind of working on a couple of products, and it's not yet released. That's the plan ahead. And I've moved to Calicut, and I'm also working on another company, which is now the one mentioned, Mozilla Technologies. We have few products, again components, which we sell to developers. Developers will use these components to develop their applications. That's the idea. We just started selling to a few customers. We have few customers, and it's kind of getting in shape. Hopefully in coming years we'll be able to kind of ramp up and get good revenue. So that's the things that I did during the last 3 years on the product side. And during the past 15 years, I do also have experience in in getting investments from different investors, small and large amounts. They were in different types. At times it's just money, and we also took expertise plus money to add the strength of our whole team. So these are the experience I have, and there are things, which I can't share specifically, but there are things that we can take in general, like the investment part should be kind of win-win situation for the investor and entrepreneur. When I say that, an entrepreneur is not just looking for money, so they want this money to be applied, and they need to generate business, right? The problem with that is we will apply the money in the wrong way if we do not get the right direction, and the money will be lost in the first year or so, and then we will have to get another round of money also. So the investor who is coming in, if he has the knowledge of the business, or he has if he can contribute in some way, it will help the entrepreneur. But it doesn't happen in our area normally. So that's one thing an investor should take care of. He shouldn't invest in areas he doesn't add value. He should try to add some value. And also when investing, it's always better to do that on a milestone basis. Even that helps the entrepreneur as well, because if he has the pressure on a milestone basis to get the next funding, next amount, then he'll try to apply that fund in a better way. So these are the some things that we have learned, and I'll be glad to answer any questions related to that. Thanks.
Thank you, Anwar. I request Vinay Kainadi to do a self-introduction, and then we'll...
Hi, good evening everyone. Looks like I've been introduced to most of you over the last couple of hours. Nevertheless, I'm more of an entrepreneur than an investor, as most of you know. So today it looks like I happen to don the hat of an investor. I was looking at what would be most interesting for a crowd of potential investors. So I thought probably I should share the reasons why I initially started investing. So there were actually, I started in late 2012, early 2013. So there were 6 reasons why I decided to get into investing. One of which was the fact that this is what I studied, this is what I specialized in, entrepreneurial finance. But apart from that, the 5 other reasons I think might be relevant to other investors. I could start. So basically the 5 reasons, the first reason would be to be in touch. So yeah, if I could. So reason number 1 is essentially, these are the 5 reasons. And hey, sorry about this, guys. I think, yeah, that might be good enough. So the reason number 1 is to be in touch. What happens is, like assuming a guy in the 90s decided to set up a business. And I know the quarry industry, so I'm going to give that as an example. So you set up a business in the quarry industry. And then from then on, your life primarily revolves around that industry. You kind of, the businesses you think of, the ideas you have are all in the crusher space, or about buying 20 tippers, or you think of getting into cement and steel and all that, and you go in your own path. But you don't realize that time has continued to move, and the 2000s came, or before that, software was a big thing, and then you hear about e-commerce. But you're still in the quarry world and you have no idea what is happening. You're totally out of touch. So one of the best ways to be in touch is actually to stay in your world and connect and invest in more new age businesses. So you're fully in touch with what's happening. So that's 1, be in touch. Coming to reason number 2, it was catching the growth curve. So this is a typical growth curve. as you know, in any industry, at the very beginning, you have huge profits, you have abnormal profits. And then competition comes in and flattens the curve. So your profits become more normal profits. But there has been a lot of wealth creation, so you're fine, you're rich, and your returns are okay. But then a little later you realize another company comes, makes hundreds of crores, grows far faster than you, and then creates a lot more wealth in a new sector. And then again, some new industry would come, again much bigger, much steeper growth curve, before that too flattens. So how can you keep on catching these growth curves? The abnormal profits in any industry last only for a very little while before competition sets in. Best thing to do is connect to the new growth curves at the bottom, at the very beginning, and then everything turns orange. Everything is your profit. So number 2 is catching the growth curve. Number 3 is to capitalize idle assets. Most entrepreneurs hate idle money. They want their money to work out and generate more money. But at the same time, money is not the only asset that you grow. You start out with no wealth, no experience. Over a period of time, it is not just wealth that you generate experience as well. And then you continue, you have a lot of wealth, you have a lot of experience. The wealth we keep reinvesting. But how can you encash your experience? Connecting with someone who provides synergistic value. You start with someone who has a great idea, but zero wealth and zero experience. So there he is ready to give a premium for experience. So in a normal case, for a just cash valuation, an entrepreneur might be ready to give 10% of his equity for 10 lakhs, is just a random example. But if you bring in both cash and experience, I guess you might not be able to see it sitting there, but yeah, so if for the same money, you might get a higher equity, or for 10% you might need to pay only 5 lakhs. So where do you save that 5 lakhs? You're actually encashing your experience. So basically investing helps you encash your experience. And then again, the probability of success. There are several elements that determine success in a business. So you can define it different ways, different authors or different people define it in different ways. One way of looking at it, this is how I look at it. You have capital, you have information, you have to be in the right context, the right time and place, and then you need an idea where you can exploit the information and the context. So what is the probability of all this working out in one person? It's very, very low. Assume there is a 50% chance that one person has one of these traits, or one of this right for him. If you look at the probability, by the time capital, by the time the capital comes in, I think the probability figures are not shown for some reason. I think the animation, when I shifted versions of PowerPoint, that's disappeared. So assuming capital being there, you have a 50% probability. When you get into information, the probability becomes 25%. And for the same person who has the capital and the information to be in the right context, in the right time and place, your probability is now 12.5%, 50% of that. And then you need to have a great idea. That's not even a 50% possibility, but assuming there is a 50% possibility, your total combined probability of success is only 0.625, which is 6.25%. But at the same time, imagine a scenario where you have all this in place. You have someone with the right information, in the right context, and has a great idea. So you see someone like that, it makes absolute sense to add in your capital there, and then you have a very high probability of success. So that's another reason why you could invest. And the last one is basically time constraints. 15 years back or 12 years back, I could probably spend 80% of my time into one company. Because a good startup actually needs about 16 hours during the very initial phases. So this is how a lot of our time schedules look at. We need to sleep, we have our social commitments, we have our family commitments, and then you have a commitment to the primary business we are in. So what we are left with is probably 2 hours, and there is no way you can found a new company with 2 hours to spare. How can you do it? So this is the kind of graph you actually need to be able to found a new company. You need probably 16 hours a day. And the best way to do it is connect. and get the right opportunity. So these are just 5 reasons that now this is just the bright side, okay? There is a flip side to it. Angel investing is very risky. So which is why we need 10x's and 20x's, because you invest in 10 companies, you might lose money in 9 of them. So a 20x is actually a 2x, because your actual investment is 10, not 1. So which is why we look at very high probability, high returns on investment, because your success rate is lower. The earlier you get in, the lower your success rate is, and all that. Anyway, as we go on, I'm pretty sure we can discuss more. Just wanted to give you guys an overview of why I invested and probably why it might be relevant to you. Thank you.
Hey, thanks, Vinay. And maybe, like I said, I joined here quite late, and most of the guys are not familiar to me. So pardon me if I ask them to repeat once again, like, you know, who they are, what they do and all. So Renish, request you to, even assuming everyone knows you, I request you to just briefly, you know, give an introduction about yourself. Yeah, it should be fine.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm Renish, and I'm basically from Payuli, but I left Payuli maybe sometime in '96. Went for my engineering in Trivandrum. Then after that, I joined in a company called Suntech. Maybe you would have heard about Suntech. And then I moved to Oracle US, and then Wipro. Then there's a company called Arbitron. So that's where I worked with a person called Shilan, and whom he connected here. So he's also part of this GMi group. And then after that, we started Rapid Value. Rapid Value we started in 2008, and that time Steve Jobs announced iPhone, and Google was running behind Android, and that's the time actually we started. But the other 2 co-founders, they were from the ERP, SAP Oracle ERP world, and I am a Java developer plus e-commerce consultant kind of a profile I had. So, but we thought, if we go behind any of these, we may not be able to achieve anything. So let's get into the niche space where we'll make some difference, and also we are not competing with the bigger guys, right? So we started in 2000 like that. We first hired our Java developer, and we asked him to learn iOS, the iPhone development, and then from there, we are now in 2017, and we are about 450 people strong company right now, and we are about 300 odd people in in Kochi, and 100 people strong in Bangalore, and about 50 odd people in US. So that's how we have been so far, and we also go with the wind. So we started with the mobile, and then over a period of time, so we moved to cloud, especially AWS and Azure and those kind of areas. Then right now we have been building a small product. I wouldn't call it as product; it's more like a service, a solution. And on top of that, we sell our services. So it's mainly on the IoT space. And so we work with all the customers in all sizes of the customers, and we work with Facebook, LinkedIn, Yahoo, or Brocade, and all sort of the billion-dollar customers to the startups. And in 2014, about 3 years back, we raised our funding. We got about 25 crore funding from a leading VC in Bangalore. So they are a Helion venture, and so those are the people who invested in Make My Trip, the Redbus, and similar space. And that's where we are. And so we are, we are growing, and so we are. We are into so we positioned our company as the partner for your next gen technologies, and predominantly the work from US. So that's how because the issues that we even now Rapid Value we follow the startup culture, like even I do, starting from shipping to delivery, and others also we do the same. So this is the first time actually I am showing up my face in this kind of a forum. And that's the case with other 2 founders as well. We never go to these kind of things because we are hands-on. So since actually Shilen asked me to come, so I said I cannot say no. Okay, that's pretty much about myself. And yeah, I don't have too much because I work as a since I'm based out of Kochi, so I work with a lot of startups in NASCOM, 10,000 warehouse in Kochi. And so I mentored a couple of startups. And then we used to have a lot of interaction sessions with the startups over there. And I personally fund a couple of them, but we are not into, so we don't spend too much time into mentorship or anything. So since these all guys are close to us and they worked in the past, so that's how we have been working. So anything specific you can ask, but this is how, or this is me and this is our company.
Thanks, Ranish. So I think what we'll do is, interesting panel here, because we have Dr. Abraham, who is the typical ecosystem facilitator. We have Anwar, who is bootstrapped company, might or may not be looking for investment, so his perspective would be different. I'm guessing at some point of time he'd be more than happy to look at investment coming in. So, and Ranish is someone who has already received VC funding, and we have Vinay, who is an entrepreneur as well as an investor. So I think how I plan to progress with this is ask questions that are specific with what each person does, and then we'll see how it goes, and then finally the floor is open for questions and questions from your end. So, Dr. Abraham, so the main question, because since you have incubated almost 50 companies till now, and you're also one of the earliest incubators in the state, the first question that comes to everybody's mind is this: how do you identify potential startups? Or like, say, if you have, typically you have got space or the capability to incubate 5 and you've got, say, 15, how do you typically select from those? So what are the broad parameters you look at?
Part of the answer will come from me. Part I will request my friend to give. How? Because they are one among the first babies. There are people with ideas, there are products. Current state, I can tell you, in our institute alone, around 700 projects are done in a year by the undergraduates, postgraduates, apart from the PhD research, which is lasting for 3 to 5 years. So these 700 projects, actually, it is last month when we invited project for submissions for competition, only 14 turned up for competition. So that means the 700 minus 14, they don't feel like presenting their work for competition. So you can see the value contained in that. It is an investment by the government. If we can convert it into a product, mostly it does not happen. But sometimes it happens, 1%, 2% happens. So the government funding is not properly capitalized. That is because when we do a project, we are always working on something new. There is a delta kind of a new thing in every project. Most of the time this project ends when the student leaves the campus. There is no follow-up possible, because there is no takers. If the project is initiated by a company or somebody else who can take it and push us again to work on that in the next batch, maybe that will lead. Then how we go about in the selection and I think first hand information.
I'm the first incubatee from TBI. And in 2002, while TBI was setting up in NIT under the guidance of DST, we were actually, I mentioned in my previous session, so I had some passion and had some confidence, but where to start, what to start, and the capital for running the show, it was a question. That time, this was TBI was giving a a real support for such kind of technocrats. And normally what happens is they have an advisory body, then an executive committee and some evaluation committee to filter to, we'll have to present before them what we are going to do. Then they'll do some, they have industry experts, academicians, and they'll evaluate and they will finally see the viability of this project, and then it goes from there. And for us, as a first incubator, there was not much filtration, to be frank. And we were very much supported by the TBI facility, because the first 3 years, the rent arrears was paid in the fourth year only with the kind support, and that was again from the incubation fund they have given to us. Thank you.
I can say that innovation is always key to the success that we find in them. Similarly in other ones. So this innovation for us, somebody should tell us, how can we solve this? If somebody from outside asks us a question, how can we solve this? We start thinking about the solution from the campus, from the academic side. Now that solution is given back, or many of the time these people come and ask us the questions. And that is what mentoring we do on the campus. That mentoring is an important factor for success of a startup. Then the capital investment that they get periodically from the interested sectors, that is another factor. Then the enabling environment created by the government. In Kerala, these people are succeeding in spite of all the difficulties. Even if it is a startup company, they will have to go through all the licensing regime of the government. Still, some of them are, some of the local self-government governing bodies are helpful. Some of them are hostile. So that are the localized factors which enable startups in certain geographical locations in the state.
I think it'll be better to ask it in the last stage, because then if you can direct your question to the concerned person, so it'll be much easier. So because then we can, so you'll get a much clearer picture once we are done with this. So Anwar, my next question is basically to you, because so basically, since this is more to create an awareness for potential investors and startups. So so your perspective would be different, because you are a startup who probably at a later stage, if I were interested, so all great stories come like that, where the VC gets interested in the company and they typically approach them. So it is the other way has also happened, but in many cases where the company is shown a lot of promise, it'll be a fight amongst the VCs to see who kind of invests first. So assuming something like that happens, and God willing, I hope that happens very soon in your case. What is it that you would be looking from an investor's, in the investor? So what would be the typical, parameters that you would prioritize to choose? Or, if say, supposing tomorrow an investor comes and makes an offer. So what are the, other than of course the valuation, what are the other things that you would be looking at?
So actually our product is kind of small components which can be used by different businesses. Even we were approached by 2 VCs. The name is too big. So it's like Sequoia actually emailed us, just email and one call. And Matrix Partners, they also kind of contacted us once. But the problem was they thought we were into SaaS. We actually were not into SaaS. So it looks like SaaS, and even we have a subscription model, but typically they don't need to subscribe. Only if they need updates, they need to subscribe. Otherwise, it's kind of a one-off, sale.
So one thing is, if we have the right product in the right niche, maybe. So I asked the Sequoia guy, why they contacted us. So they were saying e-commerce is the most booming thing nowadays, and an enabler in the e-commerce area, is something that they are looking for. So our business is that, but the model is not right. They wanted SaaS model, not the typical things. In that case, I think that there are a lot of potential for growth in case of SaaS. So if we get funding, suppose we have a similar product which we are building right now, then what we would look is for someone who can take us into the next level. With opening the right market, connecting to the right people, because we don't have the experience to make a SaaS business, a big success in a short period. So maybe they can add value in that terms. Even maybe money will also matter if we are kind of expanding in a large manner. But right now, we have the money to build the product. I don't know we are doing it right, but at least whatever we have in mind, we have the money to build that. So we don't need an investor, that's what. I don't know whether we are doing it right or not.
I think as long as you don't need money immediately, I think you're doing quite well for yourself.
And it's maybe at the cost of growth.
Yeah, and that's the day that becomes a personal call for the founders and promoters. Yeah, thanks, Anwar. Vinay, you had actually said, to be in touch and outside your area of core competence. That's what really, you would be looking at sectors that are outside your area. So typically you gave the example of, your typical quarry industry and how you invest. So my question is, how do you basically decide on which industry to, so my question actually has got two parts. So one, because you, in this panel, you are the one who's actually invested. So one is, what is it that you, how do you basically decide on what are the sectors you need to look at, or how you do it? And secondly, if you have, is it the sector or is it the promoter that, that has more significance?
So I've always been sector agnostic, and we operate at a stage very early. At that stage, I believe that the factors that actually determine success is more execution, and yes, the conceptualization of the idea and the laying out of the business model such that it's scalable. Because a lot of people might have scalable business ideas, but they do not lay out the business model such that it's scalable. So these are the things, and then the focus on cash flow and cash requirements and all that. So these are the things that we bring into the table, and those are aspects which are actually relevant for almost all sectors, which is why we believe we could be sector agnostic. But that being said, we also say that we are not rocket scientists. So if there is because our core competency is not technology. So if there is a technology-enabled idea where the founder does not have the technical expertise or the technological know-how to execute the idea and expects that to come from us, which happens in some cases, then we are probably not the best partners, because there are other investors in our particular stage in India who can actually bring in technology support to the table. So for us, it's primarily the promoter and the scalability of the idea. In a lot of contexts, the promoters do not necessarily need to realize the scalability. We can also do that. We have templates based on which we work.
So So which means that you don't get involved in the nuances of the business per se. So it's like if you feel that, you know, the promoter and the idea, which includes the scalability, of course, is past your due diligence test, then you kind of.
So, as a matter of fact, we do need to understand. I believe that, so we call it dumb money, you know, the money where you hear about an idea, it's software or e-commerce, it's a trending sector, you don't understand it, but this guy says you get 20x and so you go ahead and invest. But dumb money is a very bad idea, because I believe a lot of the value that we add, for us to be able to add it, we need to understand the business. But that being said, it might not necessarily need to be our core competency, the technology, but we need to understand it for sure. Only then would we be able to add value to it. So yes, so we need to understand what the promoter's idea is, but irrespective of the sector where we feel what we bring into the table, the things that I cited earlier, could be helpful for that particular business and its execution, and we could be on.
Actually, because you happen to be the only investor in this group, I'm sure this question is likely to come up. So before that, I'll just kind of, you know, jump the gun and ask you this. What is it that you expect? So from a company in which you have invested, so obviously there is somewhere back of your mind, at least there would be some kind of, you know, expectation in terms of more than anything else on the monetary side, right? So is it, so this is a question that I'm, you know, asking on behalf. Is it something, you know, that when you do, okay, I need to not necessarily maybe 20x as has been projected, but there has to be, okay, you will have in mind, okay, there needs to be some minimum return that I get from this over a period of time. Is that something which, you know, from your experience, you've already invested?
I usually look at just one part of the whole business plan, which is where the business is cash flow negative. So as long as the business is burning money, you need to be careful. So I look at what the further investments required would be for that one phase, and as long as that part of it can be handled, as long as I won't lose money much. I still have lost money in 2 companies already. It's just 2.5 years since I started investing. But that being said, my primary focus is to see to it that I do not lose money, and which is one of the key things that I bring into the table. I keep rationalizing cash requirements, fund requirements, and helping raise funds towards meeting absolutely required fund requirements. Because I believe, obviously, cash is the core. The moment no company, in fact 95% of the companies fail because of a cash flow crisis, which is all that I look at. As long as I believe it can be cash flow positive, there are investments that I've made which make only about 50,000-60,000 rupees or 90,000 rupees a month, and that's been the case for the last 2 years. But I'm okay with that, because I believe we're building a base which can, I'm talking about, it is about 90,000 to 1 lakh rupee cash flow positive every month. As long as that is the case, we let the founder take their time to scale up, because we believe that the base is being built. So my primary focus would be on the cash flow negative areas. As long as that's fine, we're okay investing.
Yeah, thanks for that. So Ramesh, you have actually raised money from a well-known VC, and I believe that happened a couple of years back, right? So how you know? So prior to raising the fund, and after that, after the VC came on board, so what do you think, other than of course bringing in the money from an investor's, from a company's viewpoint, how do you see the entry of an investor on board, and how has it helped you?
In 2010, so the way we started was that initially in 2009, we were not full-time. So none of us were full-time. So we were working for different companies that time. And 2010 is where actually we started full-time, all the 3 founders full-time. And then we raised a small funding from friends and family. Okay, so that's about like 50 lakhs we raised it. And with that money, with that seed money, so we went all the way till 2014. So that time, we were like cash flow positive and we were making industry standard profit EBITDA basically. So the expectation from 2014 was that, so because industry is moving very fast and we are not able to cope up with the fast and we are not able to grow to the level which we can grow. So that's where we started thinking about money. And also, that since we are in business and all three are hands-on, we want someone to report. Okay. So some pressure will come from VC. Definitely, you have let's say this year I'm supposed to make X million revenue. It's okay. We three will push and will say, okay, we are good, right? So we don't want that to happen. Okay. We want especially this is the lighter side, and on the other side, so we wanted to catch up the industry. So basically, we want to grow much faster, and we want to basically leverage the changes are happening in the industry, especially because mobile and cloud and things, that every day it's changing. So we wanted to capitalize that market. So that's the main thing. And the expectation side, definitely we were expecting the money for growth. That's the 90% of the thing. And the second was that the advisor, because Helion, if you look at it, and we were the only company in the services space. Okay, all others are like the Make My Trip or Book My Show and Redbus and the Taxi for Sure, all sort of things. Everything is like product based companies, and we were the only services company in their portfolio. So mainly, and they have a very good technical panel as well. So we used to get, they'll also help us to understand, or they'll also help us to identify where exactly the industry is moving. Okay, because they'll be approached by thousands of startups, every day or every month that we need money for growth, and they know that where the industry is going, and so that way it is actually an advisor or advice we used to get from every month. So we have a board meeting, so we used to discuss how things are going. So apart from that, that's the only thing we were expecting. We were never expecting that they'll get us the clients. Okay, it's only like the advice and the money. So that was the main thing we were looking for.
Thanks. I think given the paucity of time, I'll quickly sum up here, because one good thing from this panel is anybody who is looking forward to invest in startups. I think this is a very good panel, because you've got someone who's already invested, someone who's created the ecosystem and is identifying early good growth potential companies, and we have one company like that here. Then we have a company which has already raised funds, and one company which is completely bootstrapped and is able to tell you what is it that they expect from a potential investor. So I think this is given a very brief overview of what the whole thing is like, investing in startups, and I think we've got a fair sketch of what it involves. And so key takeaways are like from early stage investment to after investment, what is it that both the investor and the investee expect from each other. We're able to hear that as well firsthand. So I think with that we'll probably throw the floor open for some questions. So would request you to keep the questions very precise, and also specify to whom the question is directed to.
So you said about that VC funding which you got, and I'm just curious to know about, because we are now into a growth stage where we are. So how smooth or how tough it was, that investment, that procedures, and how when you were that due diligence, valuation, and all those activities, and what is the level of mentoring and support, and how is the control aspect comes in when the institutional investors are coming in?
So for us, the whole the funding stuff was a 1 year process. Okay, so we started. So it's not Helion is the only VCs we talk to. So we talked to VCs and we talked to other companies who have been doing the same business, I mean bigger, and they wanted to, because that time, when you look at us, we are a mobile company. So many of these bigger companies, they did not have the mobile wing. So they thought of, acquiring us maybe 50% and then they'll give us some money for us to grow. Okay, so, and there were talks happening that side as well. It's not just the fundraising. So we had about 4 or 5 investors, and all of them gave us a different valuation. And then once we decided to go with Helion, it took about 6 months. The whole due diligence and valuation and all sort of things took about 6 months. And then after that, we also checked about Helion. Helion is not a person or not a company where they'll get into your day-to-day activities. So basically, we'll have a board meeting. And on the other side, so we make sure that V3 still holds the more than 51%. So that, and there was only one person from their side to be part in the director board. So that way we are still owns the company, and we have the veto power. Everything is actually still owned by us. So there's no, so that's all depend upon the DNA of the VC as well. So there are VCs, they'll pester you like hell. They'll get into your day-to-day activities. If you're not generating revenue or a target by end of the month, then they'll come to you and they'll literally blast you. So Helion on that side, they're pretty good, and they were really supportive in that. Even though one quarter we are not doing great, they'll not make too much mess out of it.
Thank you. And we always have the other side of concept about VCs.
My question is to Anwar. You do not want funds. Having said that, any possibility of you regretting that at a later date, because competition might catch up, your market might get eroded, your valuation might come down, you might have the kind of valuation which you have today, maybe not tomorrow. What are the possibilities?
One thing is, we are very relaxed. Now we are, very relaxed, and we don't have any. So we don't have any pressure at all. So it's like if we take any funding, we'll have to work. So, to be very frank, I don't think we are three. So we three are ready to work, very hard to, get revenue. We don't have that. I don't know. We don't right now. I think we are too relaxed to get the funding and run behind that growth. So we are, doing good, and we have, kind of 3-digit growth at our own pace. So, yeah, that's one thing that we might regret in the future. I have that feeling, but right now we are too relaxed to go and get funding. Even with our own funds, we are not doing really well. We are not utilizing it to the extent that we should.
My name is Anil. I have a question to Doctor. You said there were about 700 projects which were there in the college, and of which about 14 are the only people or the kids who are interested. How do we inculcate the interest in the rest of the 600 plus to showcase that particular projects which they were not interested to even compete for? Right, so probably, there will be good ideas which will be there in that, but that got suppressed because they were not coming to front, right? So is there anything that as an institution that you're looking at in terms of, studying, analyzing, or trying to motivate those students to look at what are the type of projects and why we are seeing such a drop in terms of at least presenting their ideas back into for incubation or anything of that sort?
So we started learning this in the last 10 years' time. So there is an academic requirement for which the student work, and some of them are not very motivated to do that, but they fulfill the requirement. But now we have at least 3 identifiable student research groups, one working in robotics, one working in automobile, and another one working in aero modeling. These groups, they induct juniors when they are reaching the final year. So there is a full band of students right from the second year to final year are engaged in that research group, and they work beyond the office class time or outside the class time or even on holidays. And these groups bring out products which are innovative, and they participate in some competitions outside also. There is a Baha competition by the automobile engineering, some societies there, SAE Baha competitions. They build their vehicle, they participate in the competition. In the last one, our team was in first 14 or so in the screening. So there are, such things when become necessary, they work beyond the time of the timetable, and they produce result. And in the aero modeling club also, they go for the competitions with their own UAVs samples, and they make it by bringing some the components from outside. And in the robotics also, a group had developed a 3D printing machine which was improvised by the next group, and that was presented in a science exhibition. But then their interest, that group interest got into something else. Now they are working with underwater robotics. So that interest keep on changing. So if there is a follow-up, perhaps that can be converted into something. That follow-up is the one we find very difficult. But there are cases where industry collaboration is there, where the result is transferred to the industry.
Thank you, sir. Another question to Vinay is, certain times what happens is services side, you don't require large funding as far as IT is concerned. But the challenge is when you're looking into product development, when you need, typically incubations, they were limited about 20-25 lakhs max that you can do it. But certain products, you need a large amount of funding, probably let's say 1 crore or 2 crore. In such situations, right, if there's a startup which is a good idea, but they're developing a product, how would you look at that and go for an investment of those sizes that you're looking at?
So in a lot of such contexts, it's basically a consolidation of multiple angels that does the trick. And I personally, if it's a product that I fully understand, then it is something we would definitely consider. But otherwise, we would probably need to be looking at people who can also bring in value otherwise at that stage in the product development as well. Because you're talking about a pre-prototype stage, which is probably still before the experimentation stage, where we are getting that's a concept stage. And at the concept stage, something like $300,000 that you're talking about is actually relatively the kind of equity that you might need to part with, at least when it comes to Indian valuations, is a lot at that stage. So a lot of people keep away from such investments. We do as well to a great extent. But there are investors. In fact, there are a lot of seed stage, pre-seed stage funds which do invest in such ideas.
Yeah, I think we'll wind up the session. I think that those were the questions, and wind up the session. Thank you all for sharing your insights here, and I hope this session was useful to you as well. Thank you.
For the information of all sitting here, especially the speakers, I want to apologize because of the unexpected last minute hartal and bandh. Participation have come down, but to overcome that difficulty, that problem, what we have done is we have done this video recording. All these are going to go up on the net, and so anybody, in fact even friends of the prospective investors sitting here who have not been able to come today, you can see all that in the next 2-3 days. We are going to upload all these talks right from morning, Nagaraj Prakasham, this talk onwards, all the talks we are going to upload. And in our GMI website, we are going to create something called a video wall, where any event that we organize in future, right from today onwards, every event that is happening in GMI, talks would be uploaded in YouTube and on our website, which can be seen by anybody. So my apologies once again to the speaker.